Mr. President, obviously I rise in support of this measure, and I'm a little astonished at a lot of the urban patronization that I've heard with respect to this measure. Clearly, in New York, we have no ability to control the commodity price of gasoline. We have no ability to control most aspects of the cost of gasoline, but we do have the power to control the tax levy that we impose from New York State on the cost of a gallon of gasoline. I don't know about you, apparently those folks on the other side of the aisle haven't heard from their constituents with regard to their concern about gas prices, but I certainly have heard from my constituents with respect to the price of gas, and they're extraordinarily troubled. They want to know what we as state legislators are going to do about it. And I try to tell them that we don't have that much control over anything other than taxes. And a few years ago, we acted with regard to capping the amount of sales tax we can levy on a gallon of gasoline, and many people thought that that was a great idea. So a lot of people on that side of the aisle thought it was a terrible idea and didn't think we were going to achieve the savings. However, I can tell you, as someone who drives down the highway on the Pennsylvania border on a regular basis, it's ironic that the difference between the price of a gallon of gas in Pennsylvania versus the price of a gallon of gas in New York is the difference in taxes between Pennsylvania and New York. And that's a fact. That's not speculation. That happens to me every single day as I drive through my district. So those that say that somehow the competitive aspects of this measure are not going to work are clearly deluding themselves, and further only leading speculation that the real motivation behind not being in favor of this measure is because you want to spend the money on something else. Now, my constituents want to have some relief at the gas pumps, and we can do that through this particular tax holiday. And while some of you have indicated, or one senator in particular, Senator Connor, has indicated that it's 8th grade economics, I can tell you, let me tell you a little bit about 8th grade New York civics. In New York State, believe it or not, there's a phenomenon in our economy, and it's called the tourism economy, which is only slightly ranking below that of the agriculture economy as being the #1 economic activity in New York State. And you might not think that the people that work in that tourism economy matter, but they sure do in my district. And they are hardworking men and women every day who are struggling to make a living in the tourism industry, and they are extraordinarily concerned and afraid as to what the cost of gasoline is going to do to their economy and their livelihood this summer. Now, we spend, believe it or not, millions and millions of dollars a year promoting the tourism economy. And we now have a governor who has indicated that the I Love New York program needs to be spruced up, making changes to emphasize the I Love New York program in upstate New York. And now we have a measure here to provide for some incentives for people to actually utilize some of the tourism attractions, visit some of them, and all we're hearing is, no, we can't do that because we need to spend the money on something else. Now, Senator Lanza pointed out very effectively that this is not a lose-lose revenue proposition. This has major incentives brought into it, particularly as it relates to the tourism economy. The amount of money that we are going to incentivize people to come into New York State and spend by virtue of having lower taxes for once in our life. I mean, can you imagine having New York State having less taxes than any other state for a change? I mean, what a remarkable prospect. But yet we have resistance. We don't want to do that. But we can get people to come to New York State, save our tourism season this year by having this particular measure pass so that we can advertise on I Love New York that New York really is more affordable to come to. Now, the environmentalists will say, well, that's a terrible idea. We want everybody to walk. We don't want anybody to drive, and therefore we don't want anybody to go to any tourism attractions in the first place. Now, that is pretty remarkable, but that's one of the arguments we're hearing also from your side of the aisle, and that is, let's use less gasoline, and while we all want to conserve gasoline, I want to use more gasoline if it's going to mean more tourism and more economic growth in upstate New York. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is not perfect. Washington, you're right, has not acted. But the Democrat-controlled Congress hasn't acted either. They've done absolutely nothing, and they've sat still. So it's not just the Bush administration's fault for the cost of gasoline, it's that Democrat Congress. And the other remarkable thing that I don't hear is you have a candidate, I thought, for president. I think her name is Hillary Clinton. She's also the United States Senator from New York. She's calling for a gas tax holiday. Isn't that a remarkable event? Having a gas tax holiday coming from Senator Clinton that most of you or many of you in this room support. However, that's okay for her to do it, but it's not okay for us to do it? What, I mean, is there some disconnect here? I don't quite understand. So, ladies and gentlemen, for those that have tried to advocate some help for and relief for upstate New York, some concern that used to be a mantra of support for dealing with the upstate economy, helping the upstate economy. It is astonishing to me that here we have a measure that will directly help the upstate economy, the upstate tourism industry, that results is the #2 economic engine in New York State.
Senator,
and all we're doing is getting resistance.
Senator, excuse me. Senator Adams, why do you rise?
Senator, yield for a question, please.
Senator, will you yield for a question?
Certainly. Certainly.
Certainly he will.
Through you, Mr. President, there are 2 candidates in the race. Could the senator tell me what the candidate leading in the race, what his position is on the gas tax?
Senator, could you repeat the question? I couldn't quite hear you.
Senator, repeat your question.
Yes, the senator indicated that there's a presidential candidate that supports this. My question to the senator is that there are 2 candidates in the race. The candidate that is leading the race, what is his position on this?
Is he leading the popular vote or the delegate vote or the superdelegate vote?
I understand.
I don't know which vote. I don't know which way you're leading
Senator,
these days.
I
get confused every time.
I believe he's leading in both categories. So the
Thank
question.
you.
You're welcome, Senator. In conclusion, Mr. President,
Thank you, Senator.
This measure is clearly something that is needed in upstate New York, something that we heard as a clarion call for action by many on your side of the aisle, as well as our former governor and certainly our current governor, who believes that the upstate economy matters. Here is something that is a direct measure that will help the tourism industry in upstate New York, will provide for some relief, gives us an opportunity to market our advantage for once in our life as far as being a destination, affordable destination to take advantage of our tourism destinations and spend money in our upstate communities and mitigate against any potential cost of this measure, and provides for some needed relief to the hardworking men and women who have to use their cars to get to work, go to the doctor, and hopefully drive to upstate New York and other tourist destinations in New York to take advantage of our tremendous opportunities. Thank you, Mr. President. I support this measure.
Thank you, Senator.